Okay, welcome everybody. This one I like to call 5 things I do to every photo I take. Now, being a photographer of little children, in this case my own, it's sort of like being a wildlife photographer. You have to kind of grab it when you can grab it. And you don't have time to compose your beautiful photograph. You just have to snap when she sits still for 5 minutes. So, the first thing I do to photos, and this goes for most photos, is to crop it. So I go ahead, I'm in Photoshop CC, Creative Cloud, which is the latest version. You don't need the latest version to do this. I think you can do it even from 5 or 6 versions ago. So we're going to start by cropping it. That's number 1, crop it down so we can keep that focus of interest where it needs to be. I have my crop tool selected, and you see these little corners that appear. You can just pull them where they need to go. I like to just crop it down right around there. Press enter when you're ready, and voila, there we go. Thing number 2 I like to do is contrast. I like to bring up the contrast so you can see what's going on here, to add a little more pop to the dark and light areas. So we start by just bringing up the contrast a little bit, bring up the brightness too. In this case, I like to bring up the brightness too because it's kind of dark, especially around her face. All right. Now, the next thing that I do, generally following this last one, is to desaturate, because now that we've pushed up the contrast, the colors are a little wacky, a little 1960s for me. So what we're going to do is desaturate that. And you can go Command U will bring up this saturation panel. By pushing this down just a little bit, we get to something that looks a bit more normal. So here we go. And then you can always go back and adjust the contrast back up again. If you feel like you're losing too much color, then you can always go back and bring that color back in by pushing up the contrast. Okay, looking good. The next thing I like to do is focus on the eyes, because the eyes are where we want to bring the focus especially. So here we go. It looks like her eyes are covered with a bit of shadow. So one thing what you can do, this is a real trick that not everybody likes to do, but I do it because I can. I'm going to feather this to just 1, so I get a nice round selection, and it's only 1 pixel feathered. I'm going to bring some highlights just in this little piece of the eye. That might look a little unnatural and weird, but sometimes mom's got to do what a mom's got to do. So here we go. We're going to have 2 of these in there. I always like to get rid of the selection by pressing Command H. You don't see it then. And then you can just go ahead and press Command U. That will bring up this lightness panel again. And you can just kind of bring that in like that. And you can go really nuts with it and make it look kind of Disney, or you can just do a little teeny bit. I don't need to do very much in this case. There you go. I'd like to also focus on bringing out the whites of the eye. So I'm going to take that lasso tool, make sure that I have a nice feather around it. In this case, the feather is 5 pixels. That's good. We want to keep it around that way so it doesn't look too unnatural when we get in there. And I'm just selecting around the eyes like that. Command H will get rid of that selection, and let's go ahead and get that contrast panel up. And you're going to have to also bring in the brightness a little bit. Don't worry about this if it looks zombie. We can take care of that later. Don't worry. Just get it a little bit. We don't want to get it too much. Otherwise, it looks a little creepy. So there we go. At the same time, I'm going to go Command U to pull down that saturation so she doesn't look too creepy. There we go. And already you can see that you have a bit more focus on the eyes there. So the last thing I like to do in any photo is, in this case, look for little irregularities, things that kind of annoy the eye when you look around. And in this case, I see she has a little bit of smear here, or some kind of dirt or whatever. There's an easy way to get rid of that. I'm just going to select this area here. If you click on Shift F6, that will open up a feather panel, which means whatever you have selected will give you a feathered edge. I'm going to do about a 5 pixel feather right around there. And I am just going to, let's see, I'm going to take a smaller area. I'm going to copy a little teeny piece of this part of her cheek, and I'm going to move it over there So we're going to take a nice little selection here. Shift F6 will bring up that feather selection so it gets a nice feather in there. I'm going to go Command plus to get a little bit closer. And I'm just going to hold down my Alt and Command key until I get that little double arrow, which means it's ready to copy for me. I'm just going to kind of slowly pull that over just a little bit like that. And if I think it's gone too far, then I just pull it over from that side. And uh-oh, I've made a mess, but don't worry, we can fix that too. We're just going to take this whole area like this. And for that matter, we're going to take a couple more areas too. I'm going to grab this lasso tool. Put the feather is about 5 pixels, that's good. We're going to just grab a couple of little areas, what we call the highlight areas, and we're just going to smooth those out a little bit. Okay, that'll just give her a nicer complexion like that. So Command H gets rid of that selection, and then we're going to go over to the filters panel, and we're going to find the Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur gives you a whole lot more control over what you're doing. Now we don't want to do too much of this because otherwise it doesn't look really believable anymore. So just enough to get those cheeks looking good. Now we can see that this little area here that I messed with is still not quite looking good. So we're just going to focus on that little area and filter it a couple more times until that piece is gone. So out we go. Yeah, we could probably still work on that a little bit more, but for now I think we'll just leave it alone. And there we have it, looking much better. Now this works very nicely with little dirt pieces or stains and so on. And I like to get rid of little things that I don't like. So there you are, 5 things that we did to this photo to make it look a little bit better. Crop, contrast, desaturate, work on the eyes, and irregularities. And we can always undo everything that we did and have a look at what the before was by hitting revert. And that's what it looked like before. So you can see that we did a little bit of work to it before, and this is the after shot. All right, everybody, now you have a couple of tricks. Go out there and mess with your photos.